All right, so I watched the first 3 episodes of Suicide Squad Isekai. This is a really interesting project. So apparently they went out and they actually got an anime studio to make this thing. Um, it's not like Avatar: The Last Airbender where it's an American animated show just with the styling of an anime. It actually is an anime. Um, and it's also not just on Max. It is on Max, but I actually watched it on Disney Plus. Like they just dropped the first I think they're going to be they're doing weekly releases and they're just going to be dropping on Disney Plus and Max at the same time. My guess is that they would have made like a deal with Hulu in order to do the dual releases, but now that Hulu is merged with Disney Plus, I guess all those same deals just are in the same. It's all a part of the same thing now, so it's really weird. I am watching a Suicide Squad anime on Disney Plus. That's kind of interesting. The other interesting thing about it is that they don't actually have an English dub. So that actually is probably the thing that I will warn people about is that if you're illiterate, kind of can't watch the show. You know what I mean? I had to read while I was watching this. But I usually watch stuff dubbed anyways. I don't know. My mentality around it is that I want to watch things the way that the original artists or the way that the artists kind of originally intend for. And, when the director of each episode is directing the voice actors, at least as far as I understand it, like they're going to be directing the Japanese voice actors. And like an English dub, like I don't think the director is like as involved in that. So that's just kind of how I see it. I'm like, I want to watch whatever the original creators are like intending for me to see and listen to. At least that's the way that I think about it. But anyways, putting aside all the interesting like periphery stuff out of the way, how is it? Well, it's very much an anime, and anime is not something that I'm necessarily gravitate towards. To, if I'm being completely honest, like if this wasn't a DC property, I mean, I wouldn't have watched it, and I wouldn't be talking about it on this channel. But it's honestly pretty fun. So I was actually really enjoying it at first because it starts off and it is Harley Quinn and Joker. They're like driving away from the police. And I found that their initial dynamic to be super fun. It's very like anime stylized, and that like there's like this really interesting like jazzy theme to it, and it's like the Joker is driving a car, but he doesn't have a steering wheel. He like the car literally just has a keyboard, like a piano keyboard on it, and he's playing the piano, and that is the theme that's going on in the show, and he's using that to like drive the car. It's very interesting. It's very fun. And I was like, yeah, I want to see like an anime and like a Japanese interpretation of the DC world. I was actually very excited to see that. Where it just gets plainly less interesting is when you get to the isekai part of it. So I had no idea that this was a thing, but apparently an entire genre of anime is isekai. And what that genre is where the characters in the anime get transported to a fantasy world. Like that is an entire genre. I don't know if Sword Art Online counts as that. That's an anime that I've seen. I don't know if that counts as an isekai, but like that's so I guess like if you're an anime watcher and you know what isekai means, you kind of knew that was going to happen. But when I first started watching the first episode, I was like, "Oh, this is going to be super interesting." Like we get to see how like a Japanese studio kind of handles the world of DC, the world of Gotham and whatnot. And then but what we're instead getting here is we're taking an anime studio that is taking DC characters, and their interpretations of these characters are pretty cool, but they're just putting them in a generic anime world. And that's just inherently less interesting. That being said, it's still pretty fun. Like we get Harley Quinn. I mean, she kind of adapts pretty much like 1-to-1 how she acts like normally as into an anime character. Deadshot is pretty similar. I would argue King Shark is also fairly similar. Peacemaker feels fairly similar. That then as far as how he's normally adapted. By the way, it feels very the Suicide Squad inspired. I feel like, because Peacemaker's there and King Shark is there, and I don't know, just a lot of it does feel kind of the Suicide Squad inspired, and I would argue the most anime like influenced character that we see is Clayface because he's like a very flamboyant actor and he just carries like a certain anime just cool factor to him that at least I normally don't see when it comes to Clayface. Like Clayface is usually just like a mud monster. I don't know. Blame the Arkham games for giving me that impression of him. And actually, I've also seen the Harley Quinn animated show where he is also a very flamboyant actor, but he's not cool at all. This Clayface actually is kind of cool. But yeah, so those are our characters, and it is interesting to see like an anime interpretation of those characters. I just kind of wish it was in the DC world as interpreted by an anime. Instead, it's just in this like fantasy land that they get transported to that just feels like generic anime. Like all the other like they're like when you get into that land, the anime land, there are like a bunch of other like generic anime characters that are a part of that land, and it's like, okay, this is just simply not as interesting. That being said, once you get into like the third episode, like they start introducing more characters, more DC characters. They just kind of start coming into the fray. They kind of hint that there are going to be even more DC characters that are going to be coming in, like Joker. Actually, I should mention, I really like this interpretation of Joker. He's in the intro, so you imagine he's going to pop up again soon. But I actually liked this interpretation of the Joker and his relationship with Harley. I don't know, his relationship with Harley actually seemed more earnest than it's usually portrayed as. I don't know if that's me, but at least it felt that way. So I actually would like to see them together again. But yeah, overall, I mean, if the idea of a Suicide Squad anime sounds interesting to you, yeah, I would recommend giving it a shot. If you don't like anime, if you're like against anime, this is an anime. I mean, it straight up is. And it is going to have certain anime tropes and whatnot, and stylings, and voice acting of like yelling and, and stuff like that you might not be into. But other than that, I'm personally enjoying it. So I want to see where it goes from here. I will continue watching it, and I will report back with my thoughts and such. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.